A little while ago, I bought the game Project Cars on Steam because it was cheap. I wanted to try it out with my VR headset, and I like cars. If you want to know how much of a car guy I am, I drive a 2020 Nissan Leaf. So I'm, pretty cool. Anyways, I jumped into the game, started playing, and immediately remembered how terrible I am at this specific type of game. Seriously, even in like the smallest, wimpiest cars you can possibly drive in this, I drove off the track, crashed, and just was not having fun. Now, I know I could have fun with this if I actually like spent time with it, learned the physics and mechanics of driving a car, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to actually learn things while playing video games. That's not to say that I dislike racing games, it's just to say that everything in life is improved when this guy shows up. So do you want to enjoy a racing game without having to learn an extensive amount about physics and driving mechanics? If that sounds like you, then it's a me, Mario Kart. Not just Wii, like all the Mario Karts. The very first Mario Kart, Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo, was designed kind of as an alternative to F-Zero, which was a single-player racing game on the Super Nintendo. In fact, this game was like so designed around having two people play it at all times, they split the screen in two, even when you're just playing by yourself. If you don't have any like friends or siblings to play with at the current moment, you're just stuck with this like map screen deal down here the entire time you're playing, no matter what. Now, this game introduced every element that makes a great Mario Kart game. Fun characters with, different stats to them, but if you're below a certain level, it doesn't really matter. You just kind of pick who you have the most fun with. Wacky items that you get out of boxes so you can throw them around the track and mess with gameplay a little bit and mix it up. And gameplay that's more about making good decisions and kind of keeping up with what's happening around you rather than knowing what trail braking is or what a racing line should be. Ever since this, Mario Kart games have been a staple of every single Nintendo console except for the Virtual Boy, and have been a staple of sitting in your basement and screaming at your friends because of this. Personally, I played these two iterations of the game the most because, well, I had a Wii growing up, and so I played this with like all my friends all the time, and this one because my Nintendo obsession didn't reach full speed until the Switch came out. Playing these, either by myself or with said friends, have provided me with some of my favorite memories of gaming ever, as well as some of the most frustrating moments of my life. This series of games will always hold a special place in my heart no matter what. But what if you're allergic to Yoshi? There are alternatives. So while this isn't going to be a super in-depth review of all of the games I'm going to be talking about, it is going to be a good overview of how those each compared to the respective Mario Karts that they were competing with at the time. But like, I know so much more about these than these, because like, as I said, I grew up with this, not this. First up, Diddy Kong Racing. Now, Diddy Kong Racing was developed by the crown prince of the Nintendo 64, Rare. They've developed some truly legendary games over the course of their careers. Donkey Kong Country, Perfect Dark, Kinect Sports, but right in the middle of all of that was this. While some of the games I'm going to be talking about today are maybe a bit of a stretch to compare directly to Mario Kart, Diddy Kong Racing almost forces you to. It's a mascot kart racer on a Nintendo console featuring Nintendo characters. Or character, there's kind of just one big one. Because like, this is just Diddy Kong Racing. Donkey Kong makes no appearance whatsoever. He's not even mentioned in the game's manual. The characters that you can select are the titular Diddy Kong, Banjo from Banjo-Kazooie, Conker from Conker's Bad Fur Day, and a bunch of people I don't recognize. Comparing this game to Mario Kart 64, this is pretty great actually. Really great place to start the video. I hesitate to say it's better than Mario Kart 64, but there are a couple of elements that I really like about this one. First up, single-player content. Now, single-player content has been a place where Mario Kart games have been traditionally lacking. Mario Kart games are fun enough solo, but playing Mario Kart just by yourself pretty much always boils down to, do you want to play 4 races where you choose the tracks? or where we choose the tracks. Diddy Kong Racing has an adventure mode. It gives you this like hub world to drive around, and then you can go to these 5 different areas to unlock different races or other kinds of challenges and have fun. It's not that much different than just playing Mario Kart in, you know, regular Grand Prix and then some battle mode every once in a while, but it does do a good job of not outright shaming you for not having friends. Also, quick side note about adventure mode. If you're ever playing like an older game like this, make sure that you read the instruction manual that comes with it. Even if you don't like have the physical instruction manual because you just have the cartridge like I do, you could find most of them with a real quick Google search. Yes, it has some information about the controls and the characters and all of this beautifully rendered 90s CG stuff. But the one for Diddy Kong Racing also has one of the strangest short stories I have ever read to introduce adventure mode. It lets you know that all of the challenges that you do across adventure mode are set for you by an evil intergalactic wizard pig called Wizpig. And my life is so much better for knowing that. Overall, the game controls pretty good. The steering is maybe a little bit too touchy for my liking, and I'm not a big fan of when you can spin out when you do your drifts. A couple games here have this, including Mario Kart 64, but even those are probably just nitpicks and specific to me. The item system in this game is actually really cool and sets it apart from Mario Kart a good deal. Instead of just getting a random item out of a box, there are 5 different colors of balloons that you can run into, and each one gives its own kind of category of item. Red balloons gives you missiles, blue balloons, speed boosts, yellow, shields, green, slowdowns, like bananas in Mario Kart, and rainbow gives you a magnet to pull you closer to whoever's in front of you. But the cool thing is, if you hit 2 balloons of the same color without deploying the item that you got from the first one, it'll upgrade that item instead of just doing nothing. So if you hit a red balloon, you'll get a missile that'll fly straight in front of you, basically a green shell. But if you hit a second red balloon before shooting that missile, you'll get a missile that'll home in on the person in front of you, so basically a red shell. And if you hit a third red balloon, you get 10 missiles. 10 normal missiles is a lot better than 3 green shells. So there's actually like a lot of strategy and a little bit of frustration that comes with this item system. Like if I run into a blue balloon and I get a speed boost, do I use that now to kind of pass a guy, or do I wait for another blue balloon, upgrade that speed boost, and possibly get right on ahead just before the end of the race? It keeps the fun and chaos that items bring to the gameplay like Mario Kart, while still making a distinction between itself and Mario Kart. In every world of adventure mode, there is a challenge level, which has like a completely different thing that's not at all racing. And you need to do maybe a little bit of extra practice before you can actually succeed at one of these, but it does do a nice change of pace from racing every once in a while. If you want a mascot for your kart racer, who better than Mickey Mouse? Recognizable in cartoons, video games, Pavement. Now, the kart racing game Mickey's Speedway USA was developed by... What the f***? What is up with these guys' output on N64? I mean, you'd be forgiven for thinking that they developed like half of the library of this console. They developed all of these games. And according to Metacritic, this one's the worst one. And it's not even that bad. While I think this game has a pretty good core to a kart racer, I think it's just a little bit overly simplistic. Like, the controls are perfectly fine, and the drifting is manageable and helps you around sharp turns, even though you can still spin out, but there's nothing too special about the controls. There's nothing bad, but there's nothing too great about it. The track design is, in my opinion, pretty inconsistent. There are some tracks like Las Vegas. Now, I think this one is pretty fantastic. The theming and set pieces on this track are pretty good, and the layout is actually pretty fun without being too convoluted. But then you have some tracks like Los Angeles. See, each of the tracks are themed after American City. Now, what do you think of when you hear LA? Hollywood? Pretty beaches? Stupid parties at influencer mansions in the hills? Nah, none of that. You see, when I think of Los Angeles, I think going in circles on the highway near some palm trees. Or to be fair, 2 circles, it's like a figure 8. Or then there's the Philadelphia track. Now, Philadelphia, USA. I was certain that this track would have the Liberty Bell somewhere on it. Or at least a cheesesteak. Nah, shipping containers. I do love being in Philadelphia. Then we get to the items, and these feel lacking a little bit. Most of them have a direct analog in Mario Kart. Coins, mushrooms, banana, green shell, red shell, star, lightning. But then we get to the RC car. Now, I would call this a yellow shell because it will kind of track and hone in on the person in front of you, but if there's any obstacle in your way, it'll crash and fall apart. An optimist would say, oh, well, that's a better green shell. But I say that's just a red shell. And there's no real special single-player experience that comes with this one. There's pretty much just play 4 tracks, get sent back to the menu, pick another 4 tracks. That's it. The fact that this one is simpler than Mario Kart could be great for kids, but for me, I'm gonna stick to Mario Kart or Diddy Kong. Now, those games are both great, but the nice thing about Mario Kart Wannabees instead of actual Mario Kart is that if you really want to, you don't have to give any money at all to the company that published Devil's Third. Now, if you only had a PlayStation 1 back in the day, your go-to for kart racing would have been Crash Team Racing, which is perfect because this guy's name is literally something that you do with cars. Now, I don't really have too much to say about this one. I think that the controls are maybe a little bit too twitchy like they were in Diddy Kong, but I think I got used to these a little bit more. That being said, it is still strange how much control you have over your kart in the air. And that one really is just, it was weird to me. This game does have a single player mode very similar to that of Diddy Kong, where you have a hub world to explore, do a bunch of tracks, and then do a boss battle, and then unlock more tracks after that. I do kind of like this thing where if you run into the TNT item, which is basically this game's fake item box, it gives you a couple seconds before exploding. And before it explodes, you can mash the R1 button to hop and try and get it to come off your head, which it does maybe half the time. Another great addition to the mechanics of this game is that the longer time you spend in the air after a jump, the more of a speed boost you get when you land back on the ground. So if you hit R1 to jump, right before you go off a jump, you'll spend a little bit more time in the air and get a bigger speed boost when you hit the ground. It feels kind of like a predecessor to the trick system introduced in Mario Kart Wii, although this is less satisfying than Mario Kart Wii's implementation. Another surprisingly nice thing about this game is that it gives you like a tutorial or a hint from this guy after every race. Most kart racers are pretty easy to figure out. Press A to go faster, use stick to steer. But all of the little intricacies you kind of have to figure out on your own through either like reading the manual or guides online, or you just kind of happen upon them along the way. I like that this puts it up front to you, and you don't have it in like one big long tutorial right at the front. It kind of feeds it to you piece after piece so you can absorb it, try it out, and then learn another piece. I don't like how this tutorial thing just kind of stops you cold after every race and makes you listen to the next tip, but I do like how they are making a conscious effort to not just leave you in the dark on any of this. And so if you just had a PS1 back in the days, this would be pretty solid. Something that's pretty funny to me, it doesn't have to do with this game, but something that I just think is funny is back in the day, PlayStation like put Crash front and center in a lot of their advertising stuff, almost to the extent that Nintendo does with Mario now. But now, Crash is owned by Activision, whose parent company is Microsoft, which is one of Sony's biggest competitors. That, again, has nothing to do with this game. I just think it's funny. If there is one thing that Sonic Team is really great at, it is defying all expectations. For example, the expectation that this game would be good. Because it's not, or at least I don't like it. Sonic Riders is not a kart racer per se, because they are not on carts. They are on hoverboards, because Sonic is cool. But remember how I was just praising Crash for having like a tutorial system of some sort in the game before it just throws you in there? This game has nothing of the sort, and never before have I wanted one more. It is so different from all of the other mascot racing games I have ever played that I really, really need someone to tell me what the hell is going on in a lot of this. When I was thrown into my first race, everybody passed me immediately, and I was just left wondering what the heck I did wrong because I never saw anybody ever again. I do actually like the track design of this game, because when you just look at like the little mini map, it can look pretty boring for some of these. It doesn't do much interesting in terms of twists and turns on at least this track, but it does add other things like these turbulence half pipes and jumps and other stuff. What I do not like about this game are its controls. In fact, I have a lot of criticisms for this game that I have of other early 3D Sonic games. It feels a little bit too twitchy and floaty. I feel like they were trying to make the hoverboard feel more free and responsive than a cart, but it ends up feeling less predictable and harder to control than any other racing game I've ever played. This game also kind of has items in it, but I totally didn't notice them until a little while in. You just pick them up, they take their effect, and then they're done. It's totally uninteresting. Another little tiny thing that I actually really do like about this game is I really like how on the logo the R in Riders is kind of highlighted and looks different as a reference to Sonic R, the racing game with Sonic on the Sega Saturn, which is a game that also didn't get fantastic reviews. Also, it really might be because my copy of this game is a little bit scratched up, but when I started playing it, all of the audio and visuals were completely out of sync. It's like the video would happen, the audio would come several seconds later. Rebooting the console seemed to help, but not really, and so I'm left wondering, is this a problem with the game or my copy? But what the heck is happening here? Let's at least hope the next game on the list is better. Nope. This was not good either. In fact, this was much worse. The controls in this are way too sharp, but the carts move so slow. In fact, you'd think that because the carts are so slow, you would have time to compensate for the overly sensitive controls. But no, the tracks are so small and narrow that you just end up crashing into everything. For the first round I played this game, I played with motion controls on because it's a Wii game. I wanted to get the full Wii experience, and it sucked. So then for my second round, I plugged in a nunchuck just to save my own sanity, and to my utter disappointment, there is absolutely no nunchuck support of any kind. For a game all about advertising bright and colorful candies, you would think they would bring that kind of feeling into the world of the game itself. Nope. Drab, beige, gray, puke green, everywhere. I'm sure you're excited to hear me talk about what kinds of items they could possibly put in this game, but there are none. Well, okay, there are two items. Number one, there are chocolate coins. If you collect enough of them, you unlock new stuff in the main menu, that's it. Number two, there are coffee cups. Now there are two kind of big issues that I have with the coffee cups. Number one, the tracks are so narrow and tight that pretty much if you pick one of these up, you're going straight into a wall no matter what. Number two, they don't come out of item boxes, so there's no balancing of items between what first place can get and what last place can get. So first place is pretty much going to pick up all of these because they're way out ahead and can grab them first, and it's just going to send them even further ahead if it doesn't send them into a wall. But because there are no other items or anything that you need to defend against, if you get in first and you get far enough out front, you are pretty much guaranteed first no matter what, unless you get stuck behind something, which is not unlikely. Some of the tracks aren't quite as bad as this Chocolate Factory track that I played first, so I kind of just thought, okay, maybe I'm judging unfairly. Maybe I just played the worst track first. And then I played the house level. I should not be able to make wrong turns and get lost in a kart racer. Also, why are these doors so narrow? Why is there a different number of racers on each track? Why is the default option after a quick race to try again? I don't want to keep playing this game. They must have known that people wouldn't want to keep playing this game. Why does the game take so long to load for so little content? Why is there a locked track called Alien Spacecraft? Now, I'm not going to put enough work into this game to figure out what that's like because I don't enjoy the game, but it's still funny that it's here. This may be the worst game I have ever played. All right. What's up next? We need a palate cleanser. Hi, I'm sitting down for this one. So Billy the Wizard Rocket Broomstick Racing isn't necessarily a mascot kart racer in the same way as something like Mario Kart because all of these are original characters. But I'm putting it in this video because number one, it's clearly a direct ripoff of Harry Potter, just like this mini golf place I went to in Ohio that I'm not gonna name names, but Warner Brothers would definitely have grounds to sue them if they wanted to. And number two, this game is terrible and maddening and maybe the funniest thing I have ever seen in my life, so I really want to talk about it. So like I said, Billy the Wizard, Harry Potter ripoff, so the characters are pretty easy to figure out. This is Harry, Ron, Hermione, Professor McGonagall, Brett Smith, the American exchange student at Hogwarts. After selecting our character, we get into the rocket broomstick racing part of the game. Now, a racing game where you fly around on broomsticks has kind of two possibilities of how it can go. Either it can kind of add a third dimension to the track design and make something really interesting and unique, or it can go the barrel blast route, where the fact that you're flying really isn't that big of a deal to the game and it's dumbed down to the point where you're basically just on a 2D track. Billy the Wizard chooses the secret menu third option, where there is both zero track design and you are given complete free reign to fly around in 3 dimensions. So it's a Wii game where you're flying around and you have to control the direction and pitch of your character. So obviously, you tilt the Wii remote around to adjust the angle. Nope, this is a nunchuck-only household. You know, I actually got excited when I booted up the game and it told me to plug in a nunchuck because I figured, okay, they're a small studio. They don't really know how to make great motion controls, so they'll just have you use the stick and avoid the curse of crappy motion controls. But this game introduced a level of crappy motion controls I never thought possible. It is genuinely so hard to control. Like, actually, how's it going over there trying to control it? This game sucks. That's what I thought. You would be forgiven for forgetting that the nunchuck had accelerometers in it in the first place, so it could even sense this motion. Now, the actual game has you flying around really minimal set pieces, racing against a bunch of other characters, but the controls are so terrible that I genuinely could not beat this one tutorial level. And when I got into an actual race, I lost worse than I have in any video game in a long time. But props to this game, as minimal as it is, for having an actual tutorial for its unique and weird mechanics. So in conclusion, yes, Eminem's Kart Racing was the worst game I've ever played. But it was not the worst game I've ever played for long. But you see, Eminem's Kart Racing is just kind of frustrating and dull. This is so bad that it crosses a point to hilarity. And I will be playing this with friends every once in a while, just so that we can laugh at how utterly dog it is. Alright, on to a different game. So like, if you spent literally all of your money building a monster gaming PC and don't have anything left over to buy games, good news, you can still play a kart race. Super Tux Kart is a free and open source kart racing game developed by a bunch of computer nerds. I say that with affection. But what does that mean? It means that all of the source code for this game is available for free online. You can download that, compile it, modify it, put it on any system you want as long as you can develop a port for it. In fact, there already exists a port of this game that runs on a homebrewed Switch, which feels a little bit like bringing a Big Mac into Burger King. But it being open source also means that all of the mascot racers of this game are mascots of different pieces of open source software. Obviously, it's named after Tux, the penguin, the mascot of Linux, but you also have New, the New from New, Wilbur from GIMP, Conky the Dragon from KDE, as well as like a bunch of other mascots, including my favorite, Suzanne the Monkey from Blender. And if you haven't heard of most of those software, it's worth checking a couple of them out if some of those things are things that you would want on your computer. Just be careful, don't go down like too deep of a hole of computer science. Pick a real science instead, like I don't know, dunking on flat earthers online. Not that I do that much, but it's just funny to see other people do it. The actual gameplay of Super Tux Kart is fine. I'd say it's well worth the price. It's not bad by any means. And if you genuinely don't want to spend any money on a kart racer for your PC, you can get a lot of fun out of this, especially if you're playing it with friends. In fact, I'm putting a link down in the description so you could just go download it yourself. That being said, it's not going to become my go-to kart racer anytime soon. The tracks can feel a little bit empty, especially if you're playing on the lowest difficulty. It can be fixed by bumping the difficulty up a little bit, and the item balancing in this game isn't the greatest, but then again, neither is the item balancing in a lot of Mario Kart games. And every time I play this game, it keeps telling me that the battery on my Xbox controller is getting low, even though it's not. It does have a single-player story mode, very similar to that from, like, Crash, and actually this track feels very similar to this track from Crash. Yeah, those items that I mentioned aren't really anything too special. I think they all have direct equivalents in Mario Kart. It is a little bit harder to dodge them than it is in Mario Kart. Like, you can't really trail an item behind you to defend yourself like you can in Mario Kart. And this game does lack a lot of the polish that Mario Kart or even some of the better alternatives to Mario Kart have. But I do also recognize that the lack of polish is most likely because this isn't being developed by one of the biggest companies in the world. Instead, it was very clearly crafted by fans of this kind of game. And they show a lot of respect and love for a lot of the other games in this genre. And for that reason, I kind of love this game, even if it's really never going to be my go-to. I just love what it is. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed is probably my favorite game that I've played for this video. The track design is bright and colorful, and for the most part, they feel really great to race around. The controls, while not perfect, still feel pretty great, especially hitting a great drift around a nice wide corner, then blasting down a straight feels awesome in this game. Before we go any further, I just want to acknowledge this is the sequel to Sonic and All-Stars Racing 1, but I don't have a copy of that one, so we're talking about this. The transformed in the title refers to the fact that the karts in this game can transform from a car to a boat to a plane. And I initially thought that would just be kind of a gimmicky marketing point to put on the back of the box that would be inconsequential to the rest of the game, but it's actually a pretty central part of a lot of the track design in here, and I think it's pretty fun. The car is probably my favorite to control. The boat's not bad, but to be fair, I've never found a boat in a video game that I love, and the plane is the most difficult, but it offers a nice change of pace every once in a while. All of the different vehicles, I think, actually do a pretty good job at keeping the track design really interesting. So that's the transformed part of the title. But what is this All-Stars part of the title? See, that's not a phrase I've ever associated with Sonic before. That's because it isn't about Sonic. The All-Stars refers to a wide variety of other Sega properties that also make appearances in this game as characters, as tracks. Crazy Taxi, Super Monkey Ball, Nights into Dreams, Panzer Dragoon, Afterburner, Golden Axe, Jet Set Radio, Space Channel 5. All of these make appearances in this game as both tracks and characters, as well as NASCAR driver Danica Patrick and Wreck-It Ralph. I'm not quite sure what these are doing here, but they are. It kind of feels like Sega is trying to do a little bit like what Nintendo was doing with Smash Brothers by pulling in a bunch of characters from all different properties under their umbrella, before going absolutely crazy in the most recent iteration. I like that all of the Sega stuff is here, but that was absolutely not what I was expecting when I picked up this box. I mean, Sonic is the only one in the title. There's only one non-Sonic character in any of the box art on the front. There was some crazy whiplash when I got into a race and realized that I would be up against BD Joe, but after that subsided, I had a pretty good time. While I do like a lot of the track design, I feel like there are some tracks that do a little bit too much of that thing that the Mario Kart Tour tracks in the Mario Kart 8 DLC do, that I don't like, where there'll be like some shared sections on each lap of the track, but then it changes up and goes different routes every time you go around it. And a lot of these tracks just feel very long. They feel like they drag on after a little bit. Not too much, but I think some of them would have been better if they were just a little bit shorter. Add to that the fact that they are changing between every lap, like I said, and I feel like it's really hard to learn these tracks just right off the bat. I'm sure if I spent some more time with this, like I have with Mario Kart, I would get a lot better at it, but as it currently stands, this Panzer Dragoon track just confused the hell out of me. This game has probably my favorite single-player campaign of any of the games I've played today. There is no hub world or crazy story, so sorry, no whiz pig in this one, but you just get good gameplay out of it. There are some normal races and then some time trials and some kind of battle challenge things while you're racing. The normal races certainly feel the most polished of all of these, but the others do a really good job at switching things up, and I actually really enjoy playing them a lot of the time. All of the available challenges, plus all of the different difficulty options within them, there's a lot of content that you can get through in this single player mode. But about the difficulty, in easy mode, I feel like I can win races most of the time. In fact, sometimes I get kind of far out ahead, but it feels like a good place for easy mode to be. But then I think medium jumps up just a little bit too high. Sometimes when playing medium, I'll just barely get up in the top 3. Sometimes I'll spend the entire race in the back of the pack. I feel like there should just be a mode in between easy and medium, or just put medium there and move hard down a little bit, because that one's even worse. Oh yeah, items. Items are also a pretty big plus in this game for me. They don't feel quite as satisfying as most Mario Kart items do to me, but these are all very useful. And there are even a couple unique ones that aren't just direct copies out of Mario Kart. Like this tornado, if you run into it, it spins you around, and so your left and right are swapped for a little bit. Or like this baseball glove will pick up an item that's thrown at you and put it in your inventory so that you can then throw it out at someone else, and that's just kind of fun, actually. So you really gotta watch who you're throwing your items at, because it could be thrown right back at you. This experience is certainly lessened by the fact that my 360 refuses to recognize my controller for more than like 20 minutes at a time, but that's definitely a problem with my Xbox rather than the game. Overall, pretty good game. After all of that terrible bullshit in the middle, I'm glad that we can just end the video on a high note. Wait, never mind, I bought one more game real quick because it looked funny and I wanted to try it out. Before I even opened this game, while it was still downloading, I scrolled down a little bit on the Steam library page and saw some of the most unhinged community content I have ever seen in my life. Seriously, even Sonic games don't get this deranged. Why is there a hole in my wall? But I do have pretty high hopes for this one being on par with its Mario alternative, and that is for one very specific reason. I rest my case. But then, actually jumping into the game, it's fine, I guess. So most Garfield comics just take place in, like, Garfield's house, which, as we learned from playing the M&M's game, makes a terrible kart racing track. So instead, they chose to make, like, all of these tracks pretty generic, with a bunch of different settings that were all in the same art style as the characters. That's apparently from the show that this video game is based on, but I just really can't imagine that this is somewhere that Garfield and pals have been in the comics. Like, I used to read a lot of the comics. As far as I remember, it was just basically cat eating lasagna. The actual track layouts are fine. They're perfectly serviceable. They're just very bland. Same with the items. Like, the only one that I really want to mention is this pillow thing, which is basically the lightning from Mario Kart, but instead of shrinking you down, it just puts you to sleep. And I think that's funny, because putting someone to sleep behind the wheel of a vehicle sounds really dangerous, and I like that this E for Everyone game is encouraging that. I don't really have much more to say about this game. It's not like aggressively or hilariously terrible the way that these are, but it's just not very good. I'd say it's most like Super Tux Kart, but Super Tux Kart controls a little bit better. I think the tracks are a little bit more interesting, and on top of that, it's completely free. So go with this one. The only other thing I'm going to mention is I could not, for the life of me, figure out a way to control the menus from my controller on my PC. I had to click on the options in the menu to get into a game, and then my controller worked just fine for actually driving the kart. Now, I assume that's just a problem on the PC version, because that would make the console versions of this game almost completely worthless. Like, I mean, you can get a little bit of value out of just staring at the menu. Not much, not the $5 I paid for this game, but like, you could still get some worth out of that without selecting any menu options. I mean, look. It's got orange. There is a sequel to this game, Garfield Kart Furious Racing. I just don't want to spend more time or money to figure out if that one's any sort of worth it. So I suppose I'll rank them for, how much I liked all of these games. Number 1, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. Number 2, Diddy Kong Racing, still pretty fun. Then Crash Team Racing, Mickey Speedway USA, Super Tux Kart, Garfield Kart, Sonic Riders, M&M's Kart Racing, And finally, at the bottom of the barrel, our big loser today, Billy the Wizard Rocket Broomstick Racing for Wii. Now, would I rather play any of these compared with the, like, you know, respective Mario Karts of their generations? Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed? Maybe. It kind of depends on how I'm feeling that day. Diddy Kong Racing, I could see how you might want to play that one a little more. I think that I personally prefer Mario Kart. Same with Crash a little bit. But all of the rest of them, absolutely not. The only possible exception would be I'm definitely going to pick up Billy the Wizard again because it's just so funny. I want to play that one with friends. But if all of these games have done anything for me, it's really just show me how special Mario Kart is. It seems very simple on this surface. It's, you know, very simplistic as far as some racing games can go. You pretty much just drive around, make sure that you turn at the right times, throw items at each other to try and get an advantage or protect yourself. But there are a lot of little intricacies in these that are really hard for the developers to get just exactly right, and I don't think that anyone else truly has yet. Now, of course, I haven't played every Mascot Kart Racer. There are others. Now, I'm just going to read this list off my laptop. I've been reading other lists off my laptop, but I don't feel like trying to memorize this one. There's Pac-Man World Rally, Nicktoons Racing, Paw Patrol Grand Prix, Kirby Air Ride, Little Big Planet Kart Racing, a bunch of other Sonic racing games that I just didn't want to talk about. There's even like Bloodborne Kart, which is a game that I just recently learned about. It's a fan game. It comes out today, if I'm posting this video on time. I hope I am. So that's pretty much the end of the video. Go play Mario Kart with your friends. It's fun. It'll give you some good times together. Like I said in my end of the year video, I kind of want to start streaming. If you're interested in that, I've got a game picked out that I kind of want to play on stream. I'm probably going to be doing that on YouTube because I already have a little bit of a following on here. I feel like someone would be watching if I stream on YouTube, a little bit less so if I stream on Twitch. Yeah. Bye.